All right. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back again. It's time for our Monday morning high five. This morning we are looking at the book of Joshua, again, chapter 15, and we're talking about the allotment of the land for each tribe's inheritance. Um, and so it's a long chapter, but we'll give you the quick summary. If you haven't read it, we encourage you to read it. Don't just take our word for it. So the quick version is that chapter 15 describes the inheritance that's going to be given to the tribe of Judah. Um, some of um, some of that, uh, or this land, including in Judah's allotment, is a space, a city called Hebron that Caleb had been promised. And so um, Caleb is asking for permission to get that city of Hebron for himself. Um, there are, we talked about it, I believe, the last chapter. There are giants there, three sons, Anak, and they are there, but he's going to get permission from Joshua to go and take that city. Um, and then it really just delineates and kind of maps out Judah's space, their territory, what their boundaries were. Um, in that it talks about Caleb's daughter. Um, it also even introduces us to, um, I believe his name is pronounced Othniel, and Othniel is going to be the first judge after Joshua is dead. He's going to be one of the first judges. In the book of Judges, we'll read about him more, but he was actually related to Caleb. And so introducing some characters, really mapping out Judah's territory, introducing us to Caleb's daughter and how good he was to her. He gives her an inheritance of land with springs, where because it's that area was kind of a dry, deserty area, and so she has some wells, natural springs that are he's going to gift her. That's all incorporated and talked about in Joshua 15. So, Richard, what'd you see?
So, one of the things that saw when reading this and looking at this was initially just kind of reading it and for what it is, seems like there's just a bunch of land, it's talking about borders, parameters. It doesn't really seem like much to us, but we have to think about them and who it was written about and what they went through to actually get that. Um, and I think we have to look at this from their standpoint, like this was huge. This was them finally receiving that promise that they have been hearing about, that they've heard about from their parents, their grandparents. Um, that Caleb and Joshua had saw when they were younger and wanted to go get it then. This is them finally kind of getting that land, finally getting what they had been working for, what they had been fighting for, going to war for. Um, this is finally it. This is finally them receiving um, and getting what they had been promised. And like I say, this is huge for them. They're getting all this land um, that they haven't had a home in years, right? They've been in captivity, they've been in the desert, they've been wandering, and now they're finally getting to a place where they can call home. And this is just like I say, this is huge, this is big. And for us, like there are things that we go through. There are things that God has promised us. And once we finally like receive those, like it's gonna be big, it's gonna be huge. The reward that we're looking forward to. Like that's a big reward, and that's something we can look forward to. That's something we can count on God to keep His promise, no matter how long it takes, no matter what's going on, no matter what it looks like. God, this chapter was going to happen one way or another. Like we were going to read about God's people receiving their land one way or another. It could have been earlier, it might have been later, but one way or another, it was going to happen. And that's just that the promises of God, we can count on those. We can lock it in as a as a guarantee, because it's going to
The guarantee.
happen.
Uh, yeah, no, even as you were talking, I'm just thinking, sometimes, and it's not exactly the same, but in a sense, like if you've ever received a diploma, like you've graduated, you've had your cap and gown, and most people they just look at it and go, okay, like you got a cap, you got a gown, you decorated your cap, that's cute.
Yeah.
People don't know the late nights you had to stay up studying, like
Right.
you couldn't go out, because you had class, and people they don't see any of that. All they see is just you with a piece of paper and you all emotional, but
Right.
they don't understand what that represents.
Yeah.
Like what you had to go through. And I think you bring out a really good point. Like these, or there was a river here in the sea, and then their towns were here. Like we look at it and just go, okay, like, yeah, it's nice, but you're right. Like this is, they have not had a home. They have
Yeah.
not had a place. This is, this is, and we say it all the time. This is the promised land. This is
Yeah.
the land that was promised. That's yeah, that's good. And I think too, like we have promises too. We
Yeah.
have God is still making promises to his people. We just are we aware? Do we
Right.
believe? Do we really believe it? So um yeah, great point. The one point that I saw in here that really interests me, I hadn't realized it before. When it talks about those sons of Anak, the Anakim, there were three sons of Anak in this territory of Hebron that Caleb wanted to occupy.
Hmm.
And what's significant, if you go back to Numbers 13, chapter 13, verse 22, it talks about the spies when they're in the land, they see these same three sons of Anak there in the land. So all 12 spies saw these three sons of Anak, these giants in the land. And it was mostly these giants that caused the other spies to go, "Yeah, we can't go over there. We are grasshoppers to these people. There's no way we would, even with God, we cannot defeat these people, right?" Um, it, I'm thinking about it even now. Like, I wonder if it was just those three. Like, was it just those? Because I'm sure not everyone there was a giant. Was
Right.
it just three?
Yeah.
However it went, like those three, they were enough to convince people. Like, yeah, the other 10 spies that we can't do it.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating to me that you fast forward to what, at least 40 years later, those three giants are still there. They're
Yes.
still there. And and it I think that kind of represents a principle that, even when you decide you don't want to deal with a problem or an issue or a situation,
Hmm.
that problem doesn't go away. Like they don't, they, they must have been some healthy giants. Like they did not, died through natural causes. They're like, no, we're still here.
Right.
We haven't gone anywhere. But Caleb was one. He was one of the spies who said, "We can do it now.
Hmm.
Let's go now. Let's handle them now. We can win. God will give us victory." They didn't quite believe it, but now again, just like in the last chapter, Caleb is going to say, I still believe that God will give us victory. I believe he'll give me victory. Let me go.
Right.
I tried to go 40 years ago. Y'all, the other people didn't want to come. Let me go now. Like, I will go even right now and face these giants. And I think it's something for us as God's people to recognize. It doesn't matter how big the giants are. It doesn't matter. Like, running, God never designated any one of us to run away from our giants.
Right.
Like, we're supposed to face our giants, because our giants, the giants that are trying to stand across from us, I'll put it like Paul said: if God is for us, it doesn't matter how big the giants are. It doesn't matter who's against us. We just need to trust and believe God will give us victory. So I thought that was just kind of fascinating. I never made that connection. I thought this was, some new giants, or the descendants of those former giants. No, these are the exact same giant, because it
Yeah.
names in numbers, and then they have the same names in Joshua.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really telling that you know the problems don't go away, but we don't have to run. We don't have to be afraid. If we're connected to God, we can face our giants,
Yeah.
and we can have victory. We can have victory over them. So
Yeah. And I think that's interesting too, just the way that like Caleb was one of the ones who wanted to fight the giants,
right,
but like he didn't get that chance back then, but
right,
God still allowed for him to show that he could have conquered the giants, by still keeping him and allowing him that
right,
opportunity. I thought that was kind of
right,
cool. Just like, he never has to wonder like, oh, what if,
right,
necessarily like, because he ended up getting that chance. So,
right, right.
yeah,
Yeah. Anything else?
I think that's pretty much it for me.
Okay. All right, yeah. And just like we always say, sometimes you have to dig pretty deep to
Yeah.
kind of, see and try and um, find principles that you can use for your life today. But they're there. They're always there. God's
Yeah.
word always contains a word for us that is living, that is relevant. And so, hopefully, um, we were able to give you a little bit of encouragement. As we always say, we're interested and would love to hear what you see in these verses. Feel free to share it with us in the comments. We'll definitely try and respond to your comments. If God says the same, we'll be back next Monday for chapter 16. Um, yeah, we appreciate you rolling with us. So have a
Yes.
great Monday.